The turning point for me was realizing that I couldn't control everything. And I thought I could. I thought I got the birth plan. I'm going to have exactly what this birth plan says. I'm going to plan for it, and that's it. But it's just not possible. I'm Petra. I had a vaginal birth after 3 cesareans. I'm a VBAC doula and birth educator, and I feel called to tell you that you deserve the birth experience that you want. I want you to join me every week to hear empowering birth stories, heart-led conversations, practical tips, evidence-based information, and yes, we definitely dive into the woo side of things too. My hope is for you to leave each episode feeling inspired and informed. Thank you so much for including me on your journey to be back. Now let's get into this episode. Hello, gorgeous, and happy Wednesday. So today I want to talk to you about being flexible in birth and why it is so important. And we kind of touched on this in last week's episode when we were talking about birth plans, but I want to go more in depth because I feel like this is so important, especially since I've had so many recent unexpected life events that have happened to me in the last week that I feel that it so deeply relates to birth and life in general that it is just so important to keep on touching on and to continue to go more in depth about. So like this past week, my dad, he had emergency surgery because his appendix burst, and this was obviously so unexpected. And one thing that we had to do was me and my siblings, we had to kind of rally with each other, and we dropped a lot of things that we were doing so that we could go to him and help him because where he's at in the hospital is about an hour away from us. So we had to rally and like help and figure things out. So that was like one unexpected event that happened where we had to kind of pivot. It was something unexpected and we had to pivot. And then my son, Luke, okay, so he was at the park with my husband and, my other kids, and he was running, what kids do, they run up the stairs to the slide, fell down, hit his head on the metal, like poles, or what are they called? Like the metal fences that keep the kids inside of the play thing. I don't know why I can't think of the name. So anyways, he hit his forehead on those steel bars, and he got this huge goose egg on his forehead, and it was just like so scary. And there was so much like I felt guilty because I had to go to work like an hour after it happened. And, I felt guilt for like not being there, even though I knew like he was with my husband, he was in good hands, like he was okay. Um, it was still really hard. Like we had to pivot. Like my husband actually, like we don't co-sleep anymore with him. So he co-slept with them just to make sure everything was fine. And, we just kind of like pivoted what we were doing to make sure that everything was taken care of. Another thing that happened this week was my tech was not working for like my VBAC membership. Like things were not talking to each other. In the tech world, things have to talk to each other in order to like when you're automating things, and like when one thing happens, like somebody say clicks on to buy like my VBAC membership, there's supposed to be like emails that are automated to them, like it's supposed to take them to the VBAC membership portal. Like there's so many things that have to happen, and it didn't happen. So I had to scrap the what would you call it? The sales page that I originally created, which keep in mind, I spent like 6 or 8 hours creating. I had to create a whole new sales page. And it was just such a headache. And, this was like, and if you're on my email list, you saw the email I sent yesterday, and it was about like how that happened. And, this could have made me stop and be like, well, this just isn't the time. All these things happening is just not the time. Like, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. But I explained, like, no, this is the time where you really got to just be pushing forward because this could be, and I know not everybody is religious, but I feel like sometimes when things like this happen, it's because, um, when you're doing so much good, it's almost like, and I hate using the word devil, but devil or evil feels like it's trying to bring you back down. It's trying to bring you down to its level. So that's how I felt, going forward. Like something was trying to bring me back down to that low level so that I wouldn't continue to grow. I wouldn't continue with my plans. And this also related to like my own VBAC journey because that's how I felt. I felt like I was taking like 5 steps forward, and then I was taking like 3 steps back because, I would feel so confident. And then I would go to an appointment and my doctor would say, nope, this is dumb. You shouldn't do this. This is terrible. And then I would feel like this overwhelming sense of like, okay, well, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. Like everybody's telling me no, and it's making me feel defeated. But then I kept telling myself, no, one person before me has done it. It's possible. So why can't I also be that person that's also done this? So I kept trudging forward, even though, I kept having all of this negativity spewed into my mind. So, and it's like with birth too, with pregnancy plus birth. We a lot of us we hope for like this perfect dream birth experience to happen. And while of course that can absolutely happen, it doesn't always happen. But I feel like being flexible or having flexibility is so important to feeling empowered no matter what outcome of your birth actually ends up happening. So, and I'm not telling you this to discourage you, but I just want to be realistic and I want to help you better prepare for your VBAC. So, in birth, there are no guarantees. And I've had people come up to me and, when we've had like when they've interviewed me to be their doula and they've had a VBAC, like I had a dad ask me, okay, so we're going to have you as our doula. That guarantees we're going to have a VBAC, right? And I have to say no, I have to be honest and say no, there are no guarantees. There are no guarantees in birth. There are no guarantees in life. There are always things that can come and kind of throw us a loop or, just take us off track than the track that we thought that we were just like gonna be on only. And I want to tell you that also in labor, a lot of times, people think like, oh, I just don't want a long labor or I really want a short labor. But we just never know what's going to happen. And studies even show that even with the best preparation, birth outcomes can vary so immensely. And, obviously there's studies and some people love studies. I can tell you all the studies, and one in particular is, so there's something called, if you don't know, the Friedman curve. And this was something that was developed in 1954, and it's actually been the standard for OBs to assess labor progression. And to simply sum it up, the Friedman curve said that labor should progress for this many hours at this stage in your labor. And if it doesn't, then something needs to be done to speed it up or a cesarean is needed. And I'm going to link in the show notes the article which deeply explains this curve that OBs are following for your labor pattern. So the use of this curve, especially among like diverse populations with which if you're in America, we're so diverse. It's so it's so controversial to be using this curve still to this day. Recent studies suggest that actual labor rates can be slower than this indicated by the Friedman curve, which leads to potential overdiagnosis of quote unquote failure to progress and unnecessary interventions, which include cesareans. So only 50 to 60% of labors actually follow the textbook pattern of Friedman's curve. So I would say it's safe to say that this is absolutely an outdated way of trying to see how labor should progress, quote unquote, should progress. And birth, like life, is so unpredictable. And which is your labor too. It is so unpredictable. But people who cultivate flexibility actually report higher satisfaction with their birth and life in general, even when things don't go as planned. Even when your worst fear happens, your mindset and mental flexibility can actually, if you didn't already know this, it can impact the way that your birth unfolds. And, we often think of labor as like purely physical. But research is showing that what's happening in your mind can be just as important as what's happening in your body, if not more important. A growing number of studies suggest that psychological factors don't just affect how you feel about your birth afterward. They may actually predict how your labor progresses. And this includes whether you'll receive interventions like an epidural or even a cesarean. So what are these psychological factors? You might be wondering now that I said that. So researchers have looked at things like attitudes. So if you strongly believe that birth is dangerous or that your body isn't capable, that belief can impact your labor. Emotions. High levels of fear or anxiety can contribute to longer labors and higher intervention rates. Expectations. If you expect a smooth birth, your body may respond differently than if you expect difficulty. Now there's cognitive flexibility, and this one is huge. This is the ability to mentally adapt when things don't go as planned, because this can actually influence whether you have a vaginal or cesarean birth. One study found that women with higher cognitive flexibility, meaning that they could adjust their mindset when faced with challenges or changes, were actually less likely to need a cesarean. And I will link this study down below as well. Other studies show that fear of birth is associated with a longer labor, more epidural use, and increased likelihood of interventions. And I know like I said this before, but I feel like I feel like it's important to say it again because I feel like when we hear something multiple times, then we realize what the context is of what I'm actually trying to tell you, right? So despite all this research, many of these studies, the ones that I'm telling you about, aren't widely discussed in psychology or even birth spaces, which I find insane, especially because of the outcomes that they are finding with this research. These studies get buried in medical journals instead of being shared as actionable information. And so that's why I'm bringing this to you today, because I feel like understanding how your mindset affects birth can be so empowering. And it means that mental preparation is just as important as physical prep. And I know, a lot of people say, like, yes, you got to mentally prepare, but it's like, what does that actually mean? Well, it can mean so many different things. But how we apply this to our VBAC journey is number one, recognize and reframe your fears. Instead of focusing on what if something goes wrong, try to shift to what if everything goes right? And number two, stay mentally flexible. Birth is obviously, like I've said already, it's unpredictable, but being willing to adapt can make a huge difference in the way that your birth unfolds. Number three, strengthen your beliefs. Remind yourself daily that your body is capable and surround yourself with stories that reinforce that belief, and never forget your deeply rooted why for even wanting a VBAC. And if you're feeling discouraged, here's some mindset shifts that you can try. So acknowledge the hard truths. You can do all the right things and still have a repeat cesarean, or you can do nothing and still have a VBAC. Shifting from outcome-based thinking to experience-based thinking. Instead of fixating on the result, which is VBAC versus cesarean, focus on how you show up in this process. A good birth is not defined by the outcome, but how you define it, which could mean you want to feel informed, supported, loved, or in control, or whatever other feeling that you want to feel. That's what's defining a good birth. Nobody else can define what a good birth is. Only you can, because you're the only one that knows what a good birth looks like to you. And that could be different from the, thousands of other women that are planning a VBAC or who want a VBAC or they want a good birth, quote unquote, a good birth. And in my own journey, my own VBAC journey, the turning point for me was realizing that I couldn't control everything. And I thought I could. I thought I got the birth plan. I'm going to have exactly what this birth plan says. I'm going to plan for it, and that's it. But it's just not possible. And realizing that you can't control everything, all of these outside circumstances is so important. And realizing that you can control some things, which are astronomical things. Like they absolutely play a big role in your birth, and that's your mindset, your preparation, how you prepare for this VBAC experience, and how you advocate for yourself if that's something that's important for you. Finding your voice. It's whatever feels best to you, but those are the things that you can control. So control the controllables, which is your mindset, how you prepare, how you advocate for yourself, all of those things, who you choose as your provider. There's so many things that you can control, but when it comes down to it, you can't control everything. Now, here are some practical tips that I want to give you to try to help cultivate flexibility in obviously your birth experience, but also life in general. So, number one, I want you to try to practice flexibility every single day in your everyday life. So, for example, when your plans get thrown off in life, I want you to pause, take a breath, and pivot. Find a different solution that resonates with you. So, I want you to write down 3 times in the past week when you had to adjust your plans, and then reflect on how you handled it and if there was something that you would do differently next time. Number two, reframe setbacks as detours, not dead ends. Your VBAC journey might not be linear, and that's okay. It's not meant to. Every step forward still counts, and eventually that adds up to big changes. Number three is stay informed but avoid rigidity. Learn about VBAC, absolutely. But if you feel called to, also educate yourself on compassionate cesarean options. If you feel like that would help to calm your mind, you don't have to completely ignore a cesarean just because everybody tells you to. If that feels good to you to create like some type of plan for a cesarean, then that's totally fine. Do whatever feels best to you. Number four, surround yourself with people who support your journey, not just your plan. A supportive birth team should empower you, not just push for one specific birth outcome. Number five, trust yourself and your ability to adapt. You are more resilient than you might even realize right now. You have the ability to create a different birth experience than you had before. You already are because you're listening to this podcast. You're doing the work. Now, I do want to just reiterate that birth and life are full of surprises. Wouldn't it be kind of boring, honestly, if everything was like exactly as we planned? It helps us grow. It does. So, the more that you practice flexibility now, the more prepared you'll be if labor doesn't go exactly as you envisioned. And no matter what happens, you are strong, you are capable, and you are so deserving of a birth experience where you feel heard and supported no matter what happens. And if you want more support on this journey, like I already kind of touched on, my VBAC membership is designed to help you stay informed, empowered, and flexible. And if this feels like something that might be for you, I'm going to link down below where you can head to the sign up page and see if it's the right fit for you. And if you're not sure, send me a DM and ask me questions. I also have like a little sneak peek preview that I will link down below so that if you can't like envision what this membership looks like, you can click on this link and I have a walkthrough video to show you what the membership even looks like. So I am just so excited to be in your ears right now and be on this journey with you. So I really do appreciate you taking the time out of your day to listen. I don't take it lightly because just like you probably are, I'm a busy mom trying to do all the things. And a lot of times we don't have a lot of time to sit and listen to a podcast. So if you're folding laundry while you're listening to this, or you're taking your kids to school or picking them up from school, I so appreciate you. Thank you for being here. And if this membership doesn't feel right for you, Don't worry, I'm still going to be here on the podcast sharing amazing things for you, amazing tips that I feel would help you on your journey. And I have booked some incredible experts for the next couple months. So, on the podcast, we have so many amazing episodes coming up. And also, we're going to get some more VBAC stories. And if you've already had your VBAC, oh my gosh, please share with me. I'm going to put down below, I'm going to put so many links down below. I'm going to put down below the link for the form to be a guest on my podcast to share your VBAC story. So, anyways, thank you for being here. And if this was helpful for you, please share with a friend, share with somebody who might be struggling on their journey and they aren't sure where to start and they are worried about being flexible or their birth not going exactly how they planned it. Share this episode with them. All right. Thank you for being here. I'll see you next time. I hope you loved that episode as much as I loved creating it. And if you want to learn more, be sure to download your free VBAC resource guide for even more tips and advice at birthingcometrue.com/VBAC guide. And don't forget to subscribe to the Journey to VBAC so you never miss an episode. Until next time, trust in yourself and remember, you are amazing no matter how your birth unfolds. Bye for now.